The Eat Like Ruby podcast is not a substitute for professional medical or dietary advice. The advice given in this episode is general in nature and should not be used to treat any medical conditions, health conditions, illnesses, injuries, and or any nutrition-related conditions, deficiencies, or similar. This podcast is not to be used as or in place of medical advice or dietary advice. Please consult your healthcare professional before implementing any of the advice, information, or protocols discussed in this episode. Hello guys, welcome back to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am here today with the Ironman coach, Shaq. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. We're back.
Thank you for being here. We are back. So we have been away, obviously for Shaq's Ironman, and then we had a little bit of a holiday. All of the podcasts that have dropped, I'd say probably the last 6 or 7 episodes were recorded before I went away. I actually recorded 7 episodes on Easter weekend. It was
crazy.
wild. I was in a little podcast hole. It was such a weird few days, but they were actually really good episodes. I was just in the zone. But it's been a minute since we've been in the studio because we did go away for Shaq's Ironman, and then like I said, we had a few days, or actually a bit more than a week after that away. We're back now, and we're going to do a little Ironman recap today. So we're going to obviously just talk about Shaq's Ironman and what it was like for him and all of that. But like always, I like it to be, educational and helpful. So we'll probably get into like a little bit of the nutrition-y chat. And yeah, I think it'll be a sweet spot between factual stuff for Ironman versus your actual Ironman experience.
Yeah, sweet. Let's go.
Not versus, but yeah. So first of all, I feel like we just want to recap what an Ironman is if people don't know or they're here for the first time or whatever. Ironman is a big dog event, I would describe it as. So it is a 3.8 kilometer ocean swim.
Yep. 180
kilometer bike ride.
Yep.
42, is it technically 42.2 kilometer run? Yes. So swim, straight into bike, straight into run. Big event. Obviously, if you're a long-term listener, you'll know Shaq's been training for it for a long time. He did a standard triathlon, then a half Ironman, then the full Ironman. So he's been training for years, really. And then more specifically for this one for the last 8 months. Massive sessions, just huge commitment, huge achievement. It's, like I said, a big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like the first thing we need to talk about is the swim. Is unfortunately the swim. So if you follow along on social media, or if you're in the Ironman scene, you will know super unusual circumstance for this Ironman.
Yeah.
I was talking to people down there and they said, I think, so we went to Port Mac. If people don't know, they do 3 full Ironmans in Australia every year, hey?
Yeah, so Port Mac, Busselton and Cairns.
Yeah. So we went to Port Mac at the start of May, and I was talking to someone down there who said, I think they're about to hit like their 40 years of doing the Ironman at Port Mac. They would have hit it this year if it wasn't for COVID.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I think they said they missed 2. I think 2020 and 2021, they didn't do an Ironman at all at Port Mac. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was talking to this person and they said, yeah, like in 40 years or like 38 years or whatever it is, we've missed 2 full ones because of COVID, but there's never been a situation at Port Mac where they've cancelled a leg.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, but they cancelled the swim. So if people were following along on the day, you would have seen they cancelled the swim the night before, literally at like 10:35 at night or something.
Yeah,
like
everyone's asleep.
It was so random and unexpected. And so what happened with that was we got down there on the Friday and we went and did like Shaq's rego and like got set up, and we were staying in the caravan park that was literally right in the center of the Ironman, like to the point where you couldn't check in or out of that caravan park on the day. Like they didn't let people because it was like too much happening around it. You couldn't get in and out. So we're like literally in the heart of it. And I'd say every person in that caravan park was there for the Ironman.
Yeah, definitely.
People were just riding around on like $20,000 bikes, just cruising through the caravan park. And it was just like, it was a whole experience. Hey, it was it was like stepping into a different world.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was unreal. But we were there on the Friday and then the Saturday, and we went and did like the check-in, and the whole town is just in Ironman mode. So the caravan park was right in the town, and the town centre is where they do like the finish line, and then probably like 1 kilometre down the road is where they have all the bike rack, and that's the start line. So I'd say it's probably like a 4 kilometre stretch of just Ironman accommodation, signs, like stands where they're selling stuff like supplements and merch. And then, it was just like this 4 kilometre stretch of the town, which is the main town of Port Mac, was just in Ironman mode. So on the Saturday, we went and did the check-in, and there's just people everywhere, and everyone's like hyped up, and it was a bit rainy.
Yeah.
And it was a bit muddy, but people were swimming. Like, people did like a trial swim.
Like practice swim,
Yeah, practice swim on the Saturday. And there was just no signs that was not going to go ahead.
Because, I think normally it does rain that time of year up there. So everyone's just used to it.
Yeah. So it was a bit rainy and it was a bit muddy and shitty, but there was definitely no whisper of like, there might not be a swim.
Yeah.
So then we were like doing, just all of our stuff and getting ready. And then we went to bed pretty early. And I'd be so surprised if any competitors were still up when that announcement got made.
Oh, no way.
Because you're getting up at 4 a.m. to do an Ironman. You're not still awake at midnight. Like, so random. So anyway, I woke up at 3:30 and in the morning, and we were going to get up around 4 and we were going to head down there to be down at the bike rack in the start line at like 5. Hey.
Yeah.
And I woke up at 3:30 and I had a notification from the Ironman app that was like, like event announcement or something, check social media, check your emails. And I just thought it would be something so random. You know how sometimes they're dramatic like that and it's like the announcement is it's starting at 7:06 instead of 7:05 or do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, dramatic much. So I saw that from the app and I was like, oh, okay, random. Went on to social media, Insta, and it was like event update. Swim cancelled. And even at that time, so they'd posted it like 5 or 6 hours ago, it didn't really have any comments or likes or anything because again, everyone's been asleep. So then I'm laying there and I'm like, do I wake you up and tell you? Because obviously you need to know as soon as possible, but then at the same time, if anything, now you can sleep in a bit longer.
Yeah.
So there's no point me waking you up at 3:30 in the morning. So I'm just laying there like, what do I do? And then I sent it to Lockie, who's Shaq's coach, because he's in South America, so I know he's on a totally different time frame. I just sent it to him, and he's just like, what the hell? And basically it was because of the water quality. Hey.
Yeah, too much rain.
Too much rain, and then people were saying something. I don't know how true this is. Your dad said to me, well, someone told me there's sewage in the water. And I'm like, I don't know if that's really the case, but they were saying that the water was not hygienic, like it wasn't safe to swim in, the water quality. So obviously that's not their fault and there's nothing they can do about it. And if it is actually so bad that people would get sick, but people were still very unhappy.
Yeah, and like literally when you told me, I thought you were joking.
I know. I
no
knew.
way.
Because it was just so random. Yeah, so then his alarm went off at 4 and he just kind of flicked it off and I knew he was going to snooze for a while. And then I'm like, I have to tell him now because he's got to have a process with it. And I'm like, we've got to get the process done as soon as we can. And it was so funny because they actually cancelled the swim at the Moo Try, which was like 6 weeks before that.
Yeah.
And Shaq said to me, if they do this at Port Mac, I won't do it. He's like, I'm not going down there and missing out on a leg. So he had literally said the words to me, if the swim was cancelled at Port Mac, I wouldn't do it. And then I'm sitting there thinking like, is he going to not do it? Because I could understand why people were like, I don't want to put my body through that whole thing to have technically not done it. Like it's so much to go through to then kind of at the end be like, oh, I didn't really do a full Ironman. So I can understand people's mindset with that. But then at the same time, I'm like, you have worked so hard, like something's better than nothing almost kind of energy.
And literally the first 2 times only I've been decided to swim and both cancelled. I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, that's so random. So then anyway, he wakes up. I'm like, the swim's cancelled. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm not joking. The swim is cancelled. Like, check your emails. So then bit of a process. And then you could just tell, like, even when we went to the toilet, we knew another girl who was competing.
Yeah.
And so like at 4 a.m, she's out there on the phone to her coach and she's like saying to us, I don't know if I'm going to do it. So it was definitely a vibe at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. It was so like mixed emotions going on.
Yeah. And then you could tell as people were waking up, the comments were getting very aggressive on the Instagram post. So it was just a lot. It was intense.
Crazy. Yeah. And then I think the only thing that saved me from not doing it was probably a message from Lockie, shout out again. Literally didn't say anything. That's what was like, yeah, go harder on the bike and the run. We got this. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much what you did. And that's like what I was saying. I feel like something's better than nothing isn't the best way to describe it. But I feel like if you had have just, imagine if you had have gone home or just not done it. And then the next day you're like, I could have done that bike and run that I've worked so hard for. And I didn't. I feel like it would be an emotional decision. And when your emotions calm down, you would regret it.
100%.
Yeah. So anyway, we're sort of just stewing in the caravan for an hour or whatever, and everyone was kind of stewing around the caravan park. And then we're like, we're still on, so let's go. But then the biggest change that caused, not that people care, but kind of, obviously when they start a swim for something like that, people start in like groups and quite quickly, like you can send a lot of people into the water quite quickly in a short time frame. So usually like with the Moo Tri, for example, which is the Mooloolaba Triathlon. If people don't know, people are probably like, what's Moo Tri? They will do like 4 people run into the water and then 4 seconds later, another 4, and then 4 seconds later, another 4. So it starts really quickly. Whereas with this now, there was no swim. So they started from the bike and they started people one at a time. And there was like, 5,000 people?
Yeah.
And they were starting one person every 15 seconds. So that sounds short. But if you think about they were going to start 4 people every 4 seconds.
The backdraft is crazy.
That's a very different system. So then we're starting to think like, okay, well, what time are you actually going to start now? Because then obviously we reverse that back and like, well, what time are we eating? What time are we doing caffeine? Like all of that was so weighed out, structured, timed, etc. And then that time got thrown so off. So you were originally going to start around 7 and then you started at 9:30.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's a big difference when you're timing things like caffeine. Timing of like 2-hour difference on caffeine is huge.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, so we sort of got all that sorted and then we just went down there anyway. It was so insanely muddy, like where the bikes were. So it was just like a big field. Was that a football field or something?
I think so. Like
it's some sort of just like big field
open area,
near the beach or near the river. It was just a mud pit.
Yeah.
It was gnarly. I felt like I was back at a music festival. If anyone went to like music festivals, I think it was like Future 2011 or 12. That's what I felt like I was at. Just a gross music festival.
Big mud pit.
Literally. So we got down there and then he started at 9:30. So he still ended up doing 180k ride, 42.2 kilometer run. And it's so interesting because then you do have that element of like, oh, well, the swim was cancelled, but it's like you still did something so gnarly.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't made easier without the swim. It definitely was still
And
massive.
I feel like with the swim, like what time were you aiming for with the swim?
Around the 1:16 to 1:25.
Yeah, so in the context of the day, like you're aiming for like that 12 to 13 hour window. It's a very small part of it. Like it's still demanding. It's still a big thing. I'm not taking away from the swim. But if they had cancelled the bike, you would have gone from a 12-hour event to a 6-hour event. So that's a lot different. Yeah, because people were even messaging me. It was so funny. People were messaging me when we posted about the swim being cancelled. So many people messaged me and like, what are you going to do differently with this food? And I'm like thinking, with all due respect, what I'm going to be doing in the next 2 hours is not messaging random strangers from the internet and letting them know about Shaq's food. I'm going to talk to Lockie. I'm going to talk to Shaq. I'm going to work out what friggin' time he's going to start now and I'm going to get this sorted. So many people were asking me, what does this mean for his food? I'm like, yo, people messaging me on the day going, Ruby, I can't get the Ironman app to work. Any tips? I'm like, first of all, you don't know me well enough because you've just dropped the T word in my inbox. But then again, do you think my priority right now is helping random strangers on the internet fix the Ironman app? I don't care. Like, it's so random the shit people ask you. But anyway, coming back to the timing, a lot of people were asking, like, will his nutrition be different now? It wasn't that different because we were working more so on a time basis in terms of you're doing a big event that is going to be 12 to 13 hours. and we prescribe things like carbs, sodium, hydration, etc. based on the hour. So we only lost an hour, really.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because again, if we had have taken out the bike, like if they'd have said the bike is cancelled, I would have been like, okay, well, now we've just lost 6 hours from this event. So that is going to change how much carbohydrates and how much fluid and everything you're having. So
Yeah.
you're doing half the work now in terms of time. So because he only lost an hour, we didn't really change that much. It was more just like a little bit of the timing of things got changed.
Yeah.
And we just kind of, where he was going from the swim. And see, the other thing is you don't eat during the swim anyway. So he eats on the bike and he eats during the run and he has fluid and all of those things during those 2 legs. Whereas with this swim, you don't have anything. It's more so like, what are you doing before the swim? And then do you have anything in the transition from swim to bike? So that was really the only thing we looked at was, well, you don't really need to have anything in that transition because there is no transition.
Yeah.
You're just starting from the bike. So there was like tiny adjustment there, but it really didn't change anything.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that probably segues into the carb load combo.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
That's cool.
I'm actually going to do an episode, just a little FYI, next week about kind of training nutrition and carb loads, pre-training, that sort of thing. So
cool.
We won't get too like factual with it today because I'm going to do that next week, but we can talk about yours for sure. But if people follow on Insta, first of all, if you don't, eat_like_Ruby.
_Coach Shaq.
Is that what it is?
_Coach Shaq. _ at the end, yeah.
Find me, find him.
Yeah.
But if you follow on Insta, we documented the carb load heaps. Like I put a lot of like the infographics about all the numbers and then the reel of the actual food. And yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
But we did a 3-day carb load, which is bigger than most people would do for most things.
Yeah, definitely.
If we look at things like half marathon and marathon and stuff, usually we say like 24 hours to 48 hours for a carb load. But we can absolutely go further. There's nothing wrong with doing more. So we did 72 hours or 3 days. And my reasoning for that was really when we think about carb load, it's like the more you can get in,
The better.
Before the point of discomfort or any issues, obviously. Again, you think about a marathon. Like let's say if you did a 48-hour carb load for a marathon. Okay, well, cool. A marathon's going to take you 3 to 4 hours. The Ironman's going to take you 12 hours. I'm going to give you another day.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to. And that's one thing I wanted to point out is this was so insanely personalized to Shaq through trial, error, assess, adjust, etc.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't just sit here right now and go, so anyone doing a full Ironman should do a 3-day carb load. And we did as high as 12 grams of carbohydrates per kilo of body weight. So Shaq sits around 100. It actually makes it so easy to just do the maths on that. So we did 1,200 gram carbohydrate days. So again, I wouldn't just sit here and go, every person doing an Ironman should do 12 times body weight for 3 days. You wouldn't say people doing marathons, like I said, you could do 8 to 12, but even within that, I don't want to get too factual today, but you would still look at the individual and go, well, do you need to do between 8 and 12? Some people might benefit doing a little bit less.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things you would want to look at there. So I can't stress enough how much this is not advice. This is personalized to Shaq. And it was trialed. So we trialed it for the Moo Try, which was so much smaller. Like I said to Shaq all along, we are not doing a 3-day, 12 times body weight carb load for the Moo Try. We're doing it as the trial for Port Mac, and we may as well just line it up with the Moo Try.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to do that. What was the Moo Try like? 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't need to do the same extreme thing you can do for a 12-hour event.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is we use that as the trial because I'm like, well, we have to trial this at some point. So we'll do it for that. And the main things I wanted to trial was, did we push too hard and too fast? So you're going to look for like fullness, but more so in the form of like bloating and discomfort, GI stress, etc. Like you're going to be somewhat full from a carb load, but there's good full and there's bad full.
Yeah.
So that's really what you're trialing and assessing for is like, are we going too hard or are we not going hard enough? And the Moo Try told me that we didn't go hard enough.
Yeah.
Because I think we did about 9 times body weight. Like we did about 900-ish grams of
I think around
carbs
that, yeah.
for 2 days for that. And I know, Shaq, like this is what's cool is because I know you so well. I can just kind of tell when you're full, when you're hungry, when you don't want to eat anymore, when you do want to eat, etc. Like, so, and I was obviously asking you that and getting that actual feedback from you, but I was just watching you as well. And I was like, we definitely haven't pushed you too far.
Yeah.
I could just tell. And then your weight you didn't gain weight, which is so fascinating and interesting. Like, I want to, if I hit a point where I can like financially afford to just be a researcher, I want to do research into people not gaining weight during carb loads because it doesn't make sense from the science point of view, but it happens. It happened to you. I watched it happen to you. It happens to me when I've carb loaded for shoots. I drop weight on these carb loads.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that doesn't make sense, but it's awesome. Like, I love it. And this is why I love nutrition because, yes, it's scientific and it's unreal, but then science can do some weird shit. And you're like, why? Why are you doing that? But it's so effing cool.
It's cool.
So what I'm getting at is Shaq was carb loaded. And if we think about, every frigging coach on the internet that wants to get likes and whatever is making content, oh, well, carbs draw muscle glycogen into the cell and that's going to increase your scale weight. And like we've seen it a million times. Well, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. So not always. Stop making the same stupid reel. We've all seen it a million times. But like if we think about that, carbs should draw water and muscle glycogen into the cell. So we should be heavier.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But so
So it's like, what else is happening? And I would say that had happened, but then it's like other things are happening in the body where it's balancing out. And so you're not technically gaining weight on the scale.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about body fat here. We don't look at gaining body fat over 3 days, like at all for anyone ever. So this is nothing to do with weight in terms of body fat. But what we need to look at here is if we carb loaded Shaq and we'd gone too far and he's like full and uncomfortable and then kind of holding mass in his gut. Like if you think about the amount of food we've got to take in for the carb load, we'll talk about that in a second, but it's a lot of food. So that's a lot of food in the gut. If we pushed it too hard and your digestion sort of started to react not well and your body's just kind of like, what the hell's going on? There's too much here.
Yeah.
You're going to be really uncomfortable in your gut and you're probably not going to have good digestion and you're probably going to hold that. And then you could potentially hold, if we think about carrying the muscle glycogen and the water weight from carbs, and then we think about digestion being off and carrying excess weight there. Again, I'm not talking about body fat at all here. I'm talking about weight. If we think about a person doing a 12-hour Ironman event, you wouldn't put a 4-kilo weight vest on to do that event. Yeah. So we don't want you to carry an extra 4 kilos on that day.
Yeah.
So that is what you got to look at with these carb loads is it is a sweet spot because we want the muscle to be full. We want glycogen stores to be full. We want the energy there, but we don't want to go too far that those things become uncomfortable. You then walk around feeling like physically bloated and uncomfortable. Like that's a shitty feeling just on a normal day, let alone when you're trying to do an Ironman. But then actually, like I said, you wouldn't carry a 4-kilo dumbbell with you on a marathon run.
Yeah.
So you don't want to carry an extra 4 kilos around your stomach or just in your body in general when you're on that run. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So we're super off topic, but I just think this is why I love sports nutrition because that's all just so interesting and it's so cool to plan and structure.
Yeah.
Like to trial that, watch what happens through, like there's so many things that you need to assess. If you're going to do a trial carb load, there's so many things you want to assess through that trial to then look, okay, how does my body respond? Can we go more? Do we need to go less? Do we do more days, less days? Like to really get that suited to the individual.
Yeah.
You got to look at a lot of things. And I just think that's so cool. I could look at that all day.
Yeah.
I could just sit there and assess that all day. But coming back to Shaq, when we did the mood try, we did about 900 grams of carbohydrates, which is 9 grams per kilo of body weight.
Yep.
Didn't gain weight at all. I could tell he wasn't too full. Yeah, I could tell there's definitely just room to push more. And we weren't really looking at how did the carb load improve your performance, because again, the mood try was so small compared to what you were doing.
Yeah, it's more or less just seeing how I feel.
Yeah, so that's all the information that we got from that left us in the position where we're like, we can definitely push a bit more. And I was like, let's do 3 days. And we kind of did like a 3-day build up to it. So we did the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but the Thursday was a little bit lower. Like we kind of eased into it, I guess you'd say. I mean, when I say lower, I think it was like 870 grams of carbs or something. So to most people, it's not low. Day. But then we went to 1,200 grams on the Friday and the Saturday. So we did 2 days at the 1,200. And they were about 6,000 calories each day. A little bit different. Again, they kind of built up. I think we did 5.5 on the Thursday, 6 on the Friday, and 6.5 on the Saturday. The reason the Saturday was the highest is because when we carb load, again, I'll talk about this a bit more next week, but we tend to pull protein and fat down a little bit because they're just not that necessary in that short time frame. Like they're not going to serve the purpose like the carbs will. So you kind of want to pull those down to as low as you can within reason and just focus on calories coming from carbs.
Yeah.
But then on the final day, on the Saturday, we all know Shaq loves the pizza before the event. And Shaq's always been a little bit of a high fat preference person as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I wouldn't just be like, oh, you like pizza and you want to have it the night before. Yeah, no worries. Like I wouldn't say that to every athlete. You would look like you've had a pizza before every football game and every triathlon and every half marathon and everything you've ever done.
Yeah.
And we've tried different things and that's his thing.
This is my thing. Yeah.
So again, that's not advice. That's very personalized. But with that day, knowing that that's his meal of preference, knowing that he does like a little bit higher fat compared to an average person, we just had a bit more fat in that day, still with the same amount of carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which again, I wouldn't do that for most people. I think I did a post saying like there was 2 or 3 things I did for you that I wouldn't be the typical advice I would give. If someone said like give blanket advice for a carb load, there was things we did for you that I wouldn't say in generic advice. So I think that's so interesting, and that's why I think personalized performance nutrition is so cool.
Yeah, it's everything.
Just to see, it is everything. It is.
It's make or break.
It actually is, and we're going to talk about some of that a little bit later on. So those were the 3 days before it, but then obviously we wake up in the morning, we find out about the swim, we have our process, but then we still got to eat, and we had a nutrition plan for that morning. And like I said before, we pretty much stuck with that plan regardless of the swim. So that was from memory, I think it was about 3,000 calories before you started, about 500 grams of carbs, and obviously really intentionally timed with like beetroot juice, beta-alanine, caffeine, creatine, all of those things. So again, performance nutrition, it's everything. But morning of big carb, brekkie, like big calorie intake, and then you got into it. So when you're like lining up to start a 180 kilometer bike ride, what is going through your head?
It's such a...
And remember, you're not allowed to swear. I feel like you're going to say mind F.
It's such a weird experience to feel. Like everyone's lining up for the same thing. We're going to be going for 5+ hours. And it's just, this is going to sound real weird, but it's hard not to have a smile on your face.
Yeah, you have the biggest grin. Like your mum got really good shots of you lining up, like because they were sending everyone off single file, like you in the single file just grinning.
Because I think of all the work I'd done, it was just exciting to see, okay, where that was going to get me on the day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know what, swim what I can, so you know what, this is...
Just rip in,
see how it goes. Like, this is still a main goal for me, so...
Yeah.
And it was like nerve-wracking and like...
What are you nervous about? That's so interesting to me. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be nervous, but it's like, what specifically?
I think just, and it's such a weird thing. Like, obviously, I've done every session I need to do for it, and like, I think it's just like that still thing. Like, can I do this? Like, it's just such a weird.
And it's so funny because you were doing like 200 kilometer rides.
Yeah.
in the weekends before it. Like Shaq's done massive rides every Saturday for a long time now. But I would say in the last training block, like probably Feb, March, April, before you started your taper, you pretty much did like a 5-hour ride on the Saturday, and then the next Saturday you did 5.5, and then 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, up to 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just one session. Like then on Monday he would do like a 6-hour ride and a 2-hour run and stuff. But Saturday was his actual biggest rides.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were literally doing 7 to 8 hours for a couple of months there.
It's crazy. I think just being around other people, like doing the same thing, makes you so nervous at the same time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Well, what I was saying to you, like when I started the bike, it definitely must have been a nervous thing. Like my ITD bands, everything is like kind of seized up. And we were like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And it's just like that
I feel
mindset.
like there is a nervous thing happening in your mind with these seizures.
I feel like that's the first handbrake you get. It's like, should I stop? Do I need to stop here? Like my calves are kind of cramping up. Everything's kind of cramping up in me. And it's like, oh, no, we're on. Then the next like 10K into it, it's like, okay, everything's
You just ease into it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, everything's feeling fine now. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a nerve-wracking thing. This, like,
Yeah.
I'm actually got to do 180K here. Like,
I'll be so interested to see when you do the next one. I reckon that will ease. Like I think there's a massive amount of nerves just on, like you said, can I do this? And also because you've been so public with like, I am going to do this. So I think when you say you're going to do something and then that first time you want to follow through and prove it, like you don't want to look like a dickhead, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you would. I'm not saying people should feel that way if they haven't been able to do it the first time. But I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like let's say you go into the next one and then touch wood, you do have an issue and you can't finish it. I think that as devastating and shit as that would be, it's not the same because it wouldn't be an underlying thing of like,
Can you actually do
can
it?
he do it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, well he did do it last time. Yeah, so I think just that first one, you're always just going to have those feelings. But anyway, at the 10K mark, you've realised you're not cramping at the 1 minute mark.
Yeah, like literally calves, quads, everything's just like locking. I'm like, am I really cramping right now? Like, this is so weird.
Do I need a new nutritionist?
And then, yeah, I think it's just more of a nerve thing. 'Cause, yeah, 10, 20K into it. Okay, you know what? I feel good. Everything's warming up.
Yeah.
We're good to roll.
Yeah. And so we had the bike nutrition's pretty gnarly. Like that's a really,
The biggest chunk.
yeah, and it's a bit of a challenge, but again, I love it. I love how many times did I just sit there with the laptop on Saturdays? It's like a puzzle to me. Sports nutrition is a puzzle, and it's like, I can solve this.
It's so funny, like just walking in home, seeing you on the couch working, like, you don't have to do all my stuff all the time. I do. Leave me alone.
I loved it. It was so good. But yeah, bike nutrition's hard because obviously there's so many factors. Like you have to look at the actual sports nutrition. Like, okay, we're doing a 6-hour event. There's hills, there's endurance, there's somewhat sprints. So you got to look at that. Obviously just energetic demand is huge. So we're looking at just fueling the energy itself before we even think about sprints and endurance and all that. And then you also have to look at, with that, you're looking at overall energy, carbs, electrolytes, hydration, caffeine, and any other subs. That's a lot to balance and navigate because even when you look at something like caffeine can come in the form of like a caffeine tablet that only gives you caffeine and nothing else. Caffeine can come in a liquid, so then that can start to cross over into your fluid, and then you start to look and go, okay, we need more caffeine, but we don't need any more fluid, so we need to get caffeine from something that isn't fluid-based. Or you're looking and you're going, we need more caffeine and carbs and fluid. Are they all going to come from the same thing? Or are we going to have a caffeine tablet with a high-carb food? There's so much crossover.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at, well, what electrolytes are coming from these things? Obviously, sodium is the biggest one that can come in when we bring in like drinks or food. They're going to come with a bit of sodium. So if we need carbs and sodium, are we getting them from two separate things or are we going to have them in the one thing? And then after you do all that, like the actual nutrition side of it, you then have to look, okay, well, he's going off on that bike for 6 hours. There's only so much shit he can take. And he doesn't want to stop and make a sandwich on the side of the road. So it has to be accessible. It has to be easy. And we then have to look at the individual and go, what do you personally tolerate? I'm not going to send you off with a food if that food doesn't sit well with you. So the balance of sports nutrition, can you actually carry it with you? Can you take it with you? Is it easy to grab? If you're going up and down hills, again, you're not stopping on the side of the road to whip up a meal. So is it easy to grab? And then we even had to look at shit throughout summer, especially of like, is it going to melt? Are you going to take something? I know people that are big fans, so random, but I know people that are big fan of Snickers bars on the bike.
Yeah.
Like a Snickers or Mars bar. It's a bit of a weird random thing, but again, sports nutrition, like find what works for you. But you take a Snickers bar and you're charging this hill or whatever and you're thinking, yep, I'm hitting a bit of a wall. I need to take in some energy. You go to open it and it's melted into the wrapper. That is a shit fight. And I did a post about this with like coming into your event. I think I said in this post, they sound a bit different, but it's coming back to the same point. When you're planning something like the carb load or the race day or whatever, you see people that say things like, oh, I'll have one bagel and 100 grams of jam. You try and put 100 grams of jam on a bagel and you have got jam everywhere. And then everything's sticky and then everything's messy. And then you have an athlete that should and ideally is cool, calm, collected, neutral, grounded, in a good state. They're now annoyed because they're sticky and it's messy and that didn't work. And did I just lose 50 grams of that jam because half of it ran off because it's going everywhere? So again, this athlete that you're trying to keep really positive and grounded is now just in a mood. And that same thing can happen during the event. You, like I said, if you're hungry and you're hitting the wall and you're feeling it and you're like, oh, I've got that Snickers, hell yes, I need it right now. You open it and it's melted.
It's like,
First of all, like energetically, what you were going to get from that bar, well, half of it's on the wrapper now. So you're going to lick the wrapper while you're riding the bike, or you're going to chuck it out and miss half of the energy that you were meant to get from that. And then secondly, what kind of mood does that leave you in?
yeah.
Because, like, first of all, when you just open it and you're like, cool, there's friggin' chocolate everywhere. It looks like I've shit myself on the bike, right? Honestly. But then also, if you do have to chuck half of it out, then you're annoyed. Is that going to throw me off? I'm still hungry. That wasn't meant to happen. Like, it can just mess with the mental state.
Oh, 100%.
So the reason I'm saying all this and what we need to come back to is like, that's a whole nother element when you're looking at the actual sports nutrition, the individual and what works for them, what's convenient. There's so many things that have to line up.
Yeah.
And then even with Shaq's Black, you've got so many drink holders. I was filling drink bottles in the caravan, like weighing them out, working out on the bike. Like he's got two behind him, one between his legs, one up on the handlebars. What bottles fit? We've got that many drink bottles. It's insane. What bottles fit in what holders? What is the most strategic way we can get as much fluid on this bike as possible?
Yeah.
So there's so much to it.
So much to it. It's crazy, but it's so exciting.
Yeah. And the other thing with the bike is when you are then coming off that and going into a run, you then have to deal with everything that we just said for the run as well. And on the run, you don't have as many drink holders and stuff. You can do the belts and you can do different things. We can talk about that in a second. But you got to then map all that out for your run as well. And the run is a bit harder, I think, because like I said, you can't hold as much stuff. You don't have holders like you do on the bike. And you're also a lot deeper in the physical and mental hurt locker.
Because you're 7 hours.
Yeah.
Into it,
if you had it on the swim, 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
So you are still dealing with all those things, but it's even harder at this point, in my opinion. And you've got to factor that in and bring it back and go. And the other thing that can make the run harder, in my opinion, is yes, we can train the gut, and we've spoken about that so much. And yes, we can build tolerance and we can find preference and everything. But I said to GMOT before we left, I said, I'm so nervous about Shaq's nutrition. And she's like, why? It's science and you love science. And I literally said to her, yeah, but even science can do some crazy shit 11 hours in. And so can mood, emotion, and therefore preference.
Yeah.
Right? So you might be a person who, let's say you're Shaq training for the full Ironman and he's doing maybe like 3-hour bike ride, 2-hour run as part of his training. So he's fueling that with different gels and liquids and all these things. That's great, and we can start to get an idea of what works for him. But then you take it to a 6-hour ride into a 4-hour run, and also factor in things like race day adrenaline. There's so much happening in the body on race day. And like I said, we can train as best we can for that, but there's still shit. You still have to be aware and okay with the fact that other shit can kick in.
Yeah.
And it just might not go to plan and you're going to have to pivot a little bit. And I think when you're deep in the run, that's the time for those things. Like a lot of what you might have thought can start to go out the window.
Yeah.
Because you do have a person who is so fatigued and like physically fatigued, but also mentally. And that can just affect emotion and preference and everything. Even with Shaq, like there was times where I would run past him, and we could talk about this more in a sec, but I'd go to give him something and then he's like, no, I don't want it. And it's like, he would literally never talk to me like that in 12 years. Right. And also like, I know you would normally want this.
Yeah.
So you just have to be prepared for, like I said, your mood and your emotions and your preference might be a little bit different than normal because you're not in a normal state.
Yeah. I think you just got to be willing to adapt to every
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I took away from it.
Yeah. And the reason I was actually bringing this up, the point I wanted to make here was you want to make sure you get the bike as right as possible because the further in you get, the more that all those potential, I don't want to call them problems, but those potential things can kick in that you need to adjust for. So if you reverse engineer that and you go, okay, well, on the bike, you're going to be fairly solid, like mentally and quite grounded, and you're still in that place of like, okay, yep, I'm on the bike, I'm going to come off this, I'm going to go into the run. When you're deep in that run, you're just like, I got to get this done. It's a different state. So what I'm saying is when you're on the bike, you want to take advantage of that time and get everything as on point as you can. And you're also very far away from the finish. And I said this to Shaq. I said to Shaq, when you have like 10-ish Ks to go, and this is not advice, again, this is just knowing Shaq, when you have 10-ish Ks to go, you can somewhat go into the mindset of I will do whatever to get it done.
Yep.
Right? So foods that you might not normally do, like when you think about hitting that point in the run where you've got 10 Ks to go, you are, 9 to 10 hours in? 10 hours in?
Yeah.
Right? So you might want to eat something that you wouldn't normally eat because when else in your life have you been 10 hours deep in an endurance event? So you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
At that time. And you might run past an aid station. We can come back to the aid stations in a second. You might run past that and just be like, I just need 6 drinks, throw them back, let's go. Because you're just in that energy of like, I got to get there. Right. You don't want to do that when you have 8 hours to go.
Yeah.
Because if you do too much shit that you're not used to and your gut isn't used to and your body's not used to, etc., eventually that's going to kick in and accumulate and have an effect on you. You don't want that to have an effect on you. If you think about doing this 2 hours into the bike ride, for example, and what I mean like by doing this is eating whatever, drinking whatever, kind of throwing the plan out the window. If you think about doing that 2 hours into the bike ride, you still have about 8 hours of the event to go. So say you do that and then your body starts to take all that in and digest it and starts to go, this is pretty whack compared to what I normally do. You're going to start to feel the effects of that. Think about a person who goes out and like eats a really big meal or does something. Think about those times in life, like even Christmas lunch.
Yeah.
When you eat way more than you normally would or different food than you normally would and 2 hours later you're laying on the couch. Like, holy shit. You don't want that feeling to kick in 2 hours later if you still have 8 hours to go.
Yeah, definitely.
So you just have to understand all this stuff and be mindful of all this stuff. And again, coming back to the bike, this is where it's like, okay, we need to get the bike very right.
Yep.
Because A, we've got the option to do so because you can take stuff with you and we've got holders, you've got all your little pockets. Like it's a convenient time to carry some stuff. And you've also got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So we don't want to run any risks. We don't want to start doing anything crazy. We want to get this really dialed in and really take advantage of it. And we also knew, I mean, this will probably segue us into the next topic of the run and the sweat rate and the hydration. Shaq's grinning because for so long I've been telling Shaq he does not drink enough water for a normal human being, let alone for an Ironman. And he would do these massive runs with not much water at all. He wouldn't take water. He would just stop at like bubblers.
And
Yeah, which is better than not doing anything. But I was saying to him for so long, it's actually not good enough, and it can seriously affect you. People can die from getting like hydration and electrolytes wrong. And so I was really trying to drum in this point to Shaq. And so we did a sweat rate test. And ideally, we don't want to lose more than 2% body weight. Again, this can be like a little bit different for the individual, but that's kind of like a rule of thumb. We don't want to do an endurance event and lose more than 2% body weight. Sweat tested Shaq and he lost 4%. That's huge. That, like when we talk about people having serious negative health consequences from hydration, someone losing 4% of their body weight on one, what was it, 3 hour run, 2.5 hour run?
I think it was a 28K run. And I knew it was doing bad, but I didn't think it that bad.
Yeah, and I feel like you had to see it to know.
Yeah.
But so we did that in like those weeks before, just trying to really dial in the sodium and hydration and everything. Because obviously how much we sweat is then going to start to factor into how much of that we prescribe, etc. So we needed to really get a bit more specific on that for you. So we knew that, and I always knew as the big sweater. I mean, it's like very obvious and you knew that. But like actually seeing those numbers was gnarly. But I also knew you didn't like to carry the drinks and you didn't like to carry stuff on the run. So that even ties back to the bike stuff. Like we had a specific plan for you to get as much fluid as you comfortably could in, and we had numbers for you on the bike, knowing that you probably wouldn't get the right amount on the run.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too, like I learned, is the bike leg obviously is massive, but it definitely...
It's like a prep leg for the run as well.
Yeah, it aids a run.
Yeah, and that's what people have to understand. It's like everything you do on that bike is like, yes, it's got to get you through this right now, but it also has to prepare you for running a marathon.
Yeah.
If you think about somebody preparing to run a marathon, they're doing a lot of intricate things before that marathon starts. You need to do all that and also a 6 hour bike ride at the same time. Yeah. So that's really gnarly. And that's something that we really had to factor in hugely for you, was like, how much fluid can we get into you when you're on the bike to essentially like create a buffer.
Yeah.
And make sure that you didn't deplete yourself too much on the run. And that was even the thing I said to Shaq as well. Like if we can get the bike really right, and then you can get the transition right and the start of the run right, you're then like, when you've got an hour to go, not saying you shouldn't drink any water with that hour to go, but again, if you did stop drinking water, you're then going to finish in an hour's time, and you can lay on the floor if you want, and you can drink 10 litres of water if you want.
Yeah.
But if you stopped drinking water with 7 hours to go, what's going to happen for the next 7 hours? So, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so with your nutrition and hydration and everything for that ride and run, it's really about the overall energy to make sure you can keep going. Obviously, predominantly want that energy to come from carbs, and even looking at like the most effective way to get those carbs in. Obviously, we know there's different types of carbs that are going to take longer to digest or quicker to digest. So we were so specific on the types of gels that you were using to get them in as quickly as we can. And then you're also looking, like I said, at the hydration and then the electrolyte balance. And I think that's something a lot of people don't think about. I think especially like rookie beginner people, like if you're signing up for a run or something, think about someone who's like, I'm going to do a run, which first of all, unreal. Like I'm not ragging on it, but most people just think like, I need to drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
It's not so much about the water. It's about the balance of the water and like the hydration and electrolytes. So I think too many people only kind of know about the water and think about the water and literally leave out like half of that equation.
Yeah.
So like sodium was such a huge one for Shaq. I think we ended up doing 20 salt tablets.
I think maybe 22.
Yeah, and that's also factoring in so much other sodium from food and drinks and everything. Like, it was a gnarly plan that we had. I think I did a post, like, there is an infographic on my Insta that's like, my husband's doing an Ironman tomorrow and here's everything I've told him to eat. There's a massive list. But yeah, I think if you don't understand the role that electrolytes, specifically sodium, can play, I think it is really common to just get in that mindset of like, I need to drink heaps of water because I'm doing a big run.
Yeah.
And that's not really the answer.
Yeah, it's not obviously good for health and like just performance, main sake.
Yeah. Yeah. Both health and performance for
Yeah.
sure. But anyways, like coming back to the actual bike ride itself, was it hard? I mean, it'd be hard for me because
Apart from that, yeah.
like I don't do 180k bike rides. But was it like physically gnarly, or were you like, well, I've trained for this, so yeah, it's intense, but
It was definitely a race of two halves. It was definitely, when I went to out bush, it was pretty hill, but it wasn't too bad. So it was pretty normal for my normal rides.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to the end of the ride, it definitely got a lot harder. The elevation was 1.9, I think. And that's pretty hefty.
So it was, just for people who don't know, it was 180 Ks all up, but it was about 135. Like, he went out into the bush and then they did a few laps, like not into the bush, but like into the, like inland of Port Mac. And they do a few laps through there and they're gone. He was gone for like 4 hours. And then they come back through town. So he literally like rode past me and then goes kind of out the other side, like the coast of Port Mac, where there's a massive hill and just kind of like coasty hills, like it's a hilly coastline.
Yeah, it's definitely, the coastline is definitely the hilliest.
And that's like, I think you did about 45 Ks out there.
Yeah.
And then like back into town ends the 180.
Yeah, so last 10 Ks was the biggest hill, Matthew Flinders. Everyone talks about that.
Was it as crazy as people say? Because someone replied to my story and was like, it's not that bad. And I was like, okay.
Definitely is. It was bad.
It looks gnarly. When we drove it in the car, I was like, I didn't even like driving this hill.
It's definitely at 170 Ks into event. It
Yeah.
was hard. And like, it was funny, like when I'd hit the hill, there was 4 other guys with me. Before we hit it, we were just talking to each other, like, don't stop. Just keep chugging, keep going. We done the hill, charged the hill, got up there, didn't fall off, didn't stop.
No swearing.
It was just, I'll replace the word I said. We legit got up there at the same time. We were all quiet for like 2 minutes.
Like just riding off from the hill.
Everyone's just fried. And literally I was like, what the F was that? And I was like, yeah, whoever said that was easy, that was not easy. And yeah, it definitely fried my legs more than I thought. But then pretty much out of the last little loop back into town.
Yeah, back into town and then through the transition and then out into the run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the run just became like,
The event.
it's like being in a time warp. Like, it was so weird. So when he first went off on the bike, I'm like, okay, well, we'll see you in 4 hours. Like, I went and had pizza for lunch with his parents. But then when he came back through for that, before he went out to the hill, like, obviously I saw you there. And then when he came back to the run, but then for the run, they do 4 laps of like a 10K circuit. And there was so many points where I worked out I could see you on that circuit, but it was probably like 2Ks between all those points, like where the finish line was. So they run past the finish line like 4 times, where the bikes were, that little bridge where I was taking all those videos. So, and because you have the tracking app, and I know, like, shout out, so many people were using that tracking app.
Yeah,
Like,
crazy.
yeah, so many people messaged me the next day, were like, I was watching Shaq all day on the app. Same. But like when I'm watching it, I'm just constantly, all day, I just watch it and just constantly work out where can I go to see him next. And it just becomes the most full-on day for me because I'm just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's crazy. I got 32,000 steps on the day, which
That's
is
wild.
the most steps. I've never got that in my life. Never. And it's just so full on. But it was like he started the run and I messaged Lockie when he started the run and I'm like, he looks really good. He was smiling. He's positive. Like when I saw him, I was like, you're in a great position right now. And I messaged Locke and I'm like, yeah, he's solid. And it was fully daylight and the rain had kind of stopped. And then that run was just like I said, I feel it's almost like an out of body experience because each time you went past, it was like getting a bit darker and you were just getting a bit deeper. And every time I saw you, I didn't know, like, is he going to smile? Is he going to thumbs up? At one point he was like, I need salt tablets. And I think like you dropped them or something had happened, you needed them from me. And I had them in the bag. And then I'm like, I can't get them out that quickly. But he was kind of running like around this car park. And I'm like, well, if I run through the car park, I can get to the other side before him and then get them out. So I'm like, run for my life through this car park, grab out these salt tablets. I'm just like throwing them to him. And then he's like, I need water, I need this. And then he like throws me his whole nerd belt and he's like, I don't want this. Why didn't you want that? It was annoying you or something.
I think it was mostly the bottles I was holding.
Yeah. So then he throws me this nerd belt, which if people don't know is the like a bum bag, but it just holds like your drink bottles. And he throws it to me and they were so full. So then in my mind, I'm like, man has 30 kilometers to go and he's just giving me all the fluid that he's supposed to take in. So now I'm like, okay, cool. Now I have to try and every time I saw him, I would give him the bottle and I'm like, just run with this for 50 meters and throw it across the fence and I'll catch it. Like I'll go and get it wherever you dump it. And that became about 2 hours of that.
Yeah.
And I would just hand him whatever because I knew he had let go of everything. And I'm like, and again, like with 10 Ks to go, I'm like, that's fine. Do what you got to do. But when I think it was about 26 Ks to go when he gave me the nerd belt and I'm like, you cannot do another 26 Ks without anything.
I was definitely deep in it, but hats off. I've never seen you run so fast.
Yeah, because I ran for my life. I'm like, I got to give him these salt tablets, so this could be it for him.
It was, that run. The first 2 laps of 10 Ks, so when I hit the 23 mark, I felt great.
Yeah, you looked great.
After that, it was just like getting darker, getting heavier.
Started raining at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty dark and gnarly and it's pretty intense by the end of that. And like I said, it's a 10K loop. They do it 4 times, kind of through the town and then out one side, back through the town, out the other side. So when you come through the town and particularly when you come past like the main setup of the Ironman where the finish line is and stuff, such a vibe, people everywhere. Like it really is such a vibe. It's like being at a concert and a festival and you're just running. And then you go to other parts of it and it is so quiet and dark and like depressing
just
almost.
Nothing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, going past the finish line, seeing everyone, like everyone's shouting at your name. It's just like such a high.
And then you just keep running past that and you go into like the saddest, darkest alleyway.
Like literally no lights, up a hill, back through that and then up another hill.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing out here.
And I feel like I was noticing, and I reckon if people were using the tracking app and paying attention, you would notice as well, your average pace would just be like 5 Ks an hour and then it would go to like 8 and then it would come back to 5 and it was just like so random. And I was just starting to see such a pattern of like when he's around the people and the vibe, like he's basically sprinting and then it would go out to like the lonely bits and it would drop right down. Anytime it drops, you think like, oh my God, this is it. Like he's stopped. Is he injured? Even when you're out there on the bike, I get so worried that you will have a bike issue because I just feel like that would be so devastating because you've worked so hard and if something happened to the bike that you couldn't actually change, like you got a flat, hey.
Yeah.
But like you've dealt with that, you've got the gear, like you change your flat, life goes on. But if something actually happened where it's like, okay, the bike is wrecked and I can't keep going, I just feel like that would be so devastating after the work you did.
Yeah.
And you know, for anyone, like you see people crash and have those issues and whatever and they don't get to finish. And I just watch the app the whole time because anytime you stop, I'm like, what's happened? What has happened? What has happened? And like as soon as it starts moving again, I'm just like, oh, thank God. So I was doing the same with the running as well because you just run out into that darkness and I'm like,
there's nothing out there.
See you soon, hopefully. Yeah, and if anytime you stopped, I'm like, why has he stopped?
But it's so cool to see when you're in that like mindset, you're deep in it. And people right beside you deep in with you, but they start talking to you. It's just so cool. Like you kind of bounce off each other. Like there was probably, I'll say 10 different people, like guys and girls. You run past or they run past you. You have a little chat. Like, what's your name? What lap you on? What are you doing? Like this. And
Not
like,
now.
Yeah.
Read the room.
I wanted to say that, but
Literally.
it's Yeah, it's just so cool. It's so like a different environment to be in. It's cool.
Yeah.
But that last lap is probably the hardest thing I've done
Yeah.
by far. But it's so rewarding too.
Yeah. So you finished the bike, you had a flat, but you finished, were you happy with the time?
Yeah, so
I think you wanted 6:30 and you got like 6:40.
6:39.
But with a flat, I feel like it's almost like that half Ironman. You got it like nearly down to the minute of what you want.
Yeah, and like shout out to the bike mechanic. Literally the girl, I don't know how old she was. She's literally just like right beside me. She's like, get that bike upside down, let's go.
I like her.
Yeah, like literally straight to it and straight back onto it. So I literally
Get her on the pod.
And then yeah, so I was pretty happy with the bike time.
And then the run.
Took me 4:20, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy that I've done it, but I'm definitely want to get that better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's a cool position to be in.
Yeah.
Where you're like happy overall, but
Yeah.
like keen to work on things.
Legit, and like
I love that.
Feel like it's such an achievement to do it. I think there's always a thing I always say to people: you always have to do things twice or even 3 times to make sure it gets better. Like I feel like
So funny. It's funny with the like with the Ironman, I feel like I probably even said it on the podcast and I definitely was saying it to people. Like I was like, I think he'll just do one and then he'll focus on running. Like I don't think he'll keep doing the swim and the bike and everything. And then in those last few weeks, like probably March and April, I was like, he loves this. He's gonna keep doing this. He's not just going to get rid of this bike and stop swimming and everything. Like, this is his life now. Yeah, and I just remember thinking that. And then especially, like, when we got down there and then just on the day, like, with every day that went past from, like, the start of March, I'm like, more and more, I'm thinking he's going to do more of this. Do you feel like, were you feeling that as well? Like, obviously, I feel like you definitely want to do another one because of the swim situation.
yeah.
But were you feeling like you wanted to do more even before that happened?
I feel like, yeah, when I got down there, I was just like, okay.
What about in the weeks leading up to it?
Yeah, I think it's just,
Yeah, you were just starting to vibe it really hard.
yeah, I think it's just everything, like the environment where I've put myself through and just like, yeah, okay, I could probably see myself doing more of these.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So we're doing more.
Yeah, and there's probably obviously 2 main reasons why I did the next one is to swim, check, and then ring that bell. I did not ring the bell.
Yeah, so if people don't know, like one of the biggest things when they do the full is that they ring the bell. And I think some people did, but I think most people didn't.
Nah.
Just because of the swim. It's like, can I really ring the Ironman bell? So yeah, that makes sense. But I think super cool to have done it, and you know, it's like there's nothing compares to just like match experience.
Yeah. And
You know, so to go, when you go into the next one now, you're just going to have so much more awareness of what you're going into. Not that you didn't, but yeah.
I think, yeah, that's that race day adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to match that through training.
Yeah.
And
And then I think even like you said, those nerves, I feel like they were hugely first time related. So I feel like that would be reduced if you do another one.
Legit. And I feel like, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool to do it again. And
Not this year though, hey?
no.
Nah. What are you going to do next?
Next up is in 9 weeks, go to the Sunny Coast Marathon.
It's not 9 weeks. No way. Oh, by the time this episode comes out, I think it might be 10 weeks
Yeah.
when the episode comes out.
Yeah, so I'll start training for that next week.
Yeah, so I think right now you're like 11 and a half
Yeah.
weeks out. And we're recording on Wednesday, the 14th of May. I think this is going to come out not this Friday, but the next. Yeah, and I think this weekend is 11 weeks. So Sunny Coast Marathon.
Yeah.
So close to home.
So close. No travel.
Yeah, I might just go out on the balcony, see if I can see you.
But yeah, that'd be cool just to do a marathon and get better at that leg. And
Yeah.
not to do it 7 hours deep.
Yeah.
And go for a time. So the goal is 3:30.
3:30 marathon. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, so
I love that.
that's the goal. And yeah, we start next week.
Marathon training.
Yeah, just running.
I feel like I feel that's easy for you.
I don't want to say it, but like, I've been going with a lot of free time. It's weird.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I've been renovating our house by myself. Not anymore. I know you got spare 8 hours every Saturday. I know.
I'm busy.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be like a little bit refreshing for you to work towards something, but just not something as big and intense.
Yeah.
Like it'll be a bit of a sweet spot, I reckon. And then kind of tick that off and then work out. Do you reckon we'll go back to Port Mac or do you reckon we'll go to Busselton?
That's the thing. I want to work that out soon. Do I do the same course as did, or do I go more south?
I reckon both, or even do a half at one of them.
Because that'd be another cool thing to do a full and then work way back to the half Ironmans.
Yeah. I reckon you either do the full at Port Mac next year and then do the half at Busselton. I mostly just want to go there because it's WA.
I think everyone
I just
loves
want
it
to go.
there.
Yeah, with the van. Yes, I reckon you could do the half at Port Mac. So the same times every year, but Busselton's December.
Yes.
But you wouldn't do this coming December. So
No.
it'd be like literally end of next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch this space, I guess.
Yeah. Follow along.
Yeah. Did we work out what your actual Instagram name is?
It's _ Coach Shack _
I don't reckon it is.
I think it is.
I think there's an underscore in the middle. Yeah. It's Coach _Shack _.
There was two.
And you've actually been trying to change it. So by the time the episode comes out,
It'll
you'll
be
probably
changed.
change it. Just look for me and then look for him, like I said. But is there anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it.
I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah. It's such a real experience and I loved it.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming along and being the support girl.
I was about to say, anyone you'd like to thank?
It's even seeing you at those events, it's just so cool to see you
Backpack
up and
on.
about.
She's got the backpack on.
It's so funny
You're running around.
how loud that crowd was. Literally past the DJ, so you couldn't hear a thing. Oh, that DJ. Literally every time I ran past, this one little girl was up on a fucking ledge just screaming her little lungs out at me every time. I just knew it was her straight away.
Yeah.
It's just so cool to see.
It's just so cool. I always want you to know I'm there because I know, like, sometimes you see me, but sometimes you don't. And I'm like, I just want him to know, like, I'm here, I'm watching.
I think there was only like two other people there that knew I'm Shaq. Everyone else called me Ricky. So
Oh, yeah, because Bib said Ricky as well.
Yeah, so every time I heard the Shaq, I'm like, that's her.
Guys, they don't sound like that.
I wouldn't scream, but
What the hell? No, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, guys, next week I'm going to do an ep that is pretty much just going to be about like carb loading, pre-training nutrition, intra-training nutrition, etc. Kind of will probably reference some of Shaq's stuff, but also for, you know, smaller events, if I know a lot of people at the moment are doing half marathons, triathlons, high rocks, all that sort of thing. But then even just the gym gals as well. We speak a lot about going into the gym on an empty tank versus going in with some carbs in the system. So I just want to like explain that a little bit more. I feel like I always preach it, but it'd be cool to kind of explain why and what's going on in the body and just know a little bit more about that. So I'm going to talk about that next week. And then we have something very, very cool happening on the Eat Like Ruby podcast in June. I am not going to announce it yet, but the announcement is coming very soon. And I think it is going to be the most, I don't know what the word is, not that people are demanding, but it's in high demand. And I think when I say to people, this is what we're doing on the podcast in June, people are going to be like, hell yes, Rubes, bring it on.
Yeah,
so
exciting.
it is cool, hey?
Yeah,
Even
very exciting.
Shaq knows something very cool, very different. We've never done it before. And I just think so insanely beneficial. So like always, guys, please chuck us a like, a rating, a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those things. Chuck us on Instagram, tag Eat Like Ruby. I want to know you're out there. I want to know you're listening. I want to know you're vibing because I have something very, very cool coming for you for the month of June. But thank you so much for coming in today, Shaq.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you. And if you're interested in performance nutrition, you can hit me up. If you're interested in following along an Ironman and now pursuing a marathon and all these other things, you can follow Shaq. And I will be back next week.
See you guys.